Hey there, my fellow intellectuals. Welcome to the first episode of Highly Variable. I am your host, Kyle Kabasares, and welcome to the inaugural episode. Now, this is a special day because one, it is the birth of my first ever podcast, but two, it's also America's birthday. So, well, unfortunately, I don't know if I'll upload this on July 4th, unfortunately. So now that I think about it, maybe not. But I am recording on July 4th. It is July 4th, 2019. So happy 243rd birthday, America. So yeah, it's a great day. Two great birthdays in one day. So what is this all about? Why would someone who is listening like you want to keep listening? And is this the podcast for you, essentially? So I'm going to get into that. What is this podcast about? Well, for those of you who don't know, I'm a physics PhD graduate student at the University of California, Irvine, and I specialize in the field of supermassive black hole mass measurement. So I measure the masses of these black holes. And I initially had an idea when I came to graduate school that I wanted to vlog and I wanted to blog. I have a website. It's www.kylekabasares.com, so please visit that if you're interested. And the idea was that I was going to have like a daily vlog and, show what my day-to-day routine is. And if you see people on YouTube like Simon Clark or Andrew Dotson, who are also, Simon Clark just got his PhD, I think, last year, so he's done. But he would vlog sort of his weeks in graduate school. Andrew Dotson currently does that. And I wanted to do sort of the same thing, but then I sort of realized, one, I don't really have the equipment to. I have my phone, and I don't really like filming in public and just getting people on camera and just talking to a camera in public. It just feels weird. I don't know if I really have the personality for it or if I'm just not confident enough yet to do it. Maybe at some point I'll get into that. But right now I just felt, the vlogs it's not going to work. So that's why I decided, hey, podcasts. Why don't I just talk about my days? Why don't I just talk about my experiences, what I go through in graduate school? But it's not going to just be a graduate school experience podcast, right? It's highly variable, right? It can change. It's variable, and I have a lot of different interests outside of physics. So I thought maybe this could be a place where I talk about those things too. So if you have one of the shared interests that I have, I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I'm saying. If you have a shared interest of mine, then maybe you'll enjoy some of the episodes, and maybe some of the times you won't. And I'm okay with that. I spent a long time, trying to think of how to just sell this sort of personality of mine where I have just so many interests. I'm really into like sports, specifically baseball and basketball. I'm really into chess. I'm really into physics, of course, and mathematics, really into science communication. I like to read. I like to play video games. I just have a lot of just different interests that aren't all necessarily related, and trying to find a way to express those interests in a creative way, just, making a channel for all those interests is not possible. It's not feasible. That's too many channels. So I thought maybe the podcast can just be a way for me to talk about any one of those interests. And it's just not limited to those interests, but, just anything really that comes to my mind. So it's a podcast about me. That I should probably just stop the buck right there. It's a podcast about me, and if it just sounds so narcissistic. I didn't want to sell it like that, but I mean, really, it's just a podcast about my interests, and I don't want it to be like a narcissistic thing or anything. It's just I have a lot of different interests, and sometimes it's hard to find the people to express those interests with. And if you're into any of those things, maybe you'll find this podcast entertaining because we can sort of talk about that stuff. So yeah, essentially this is like my audio log of my time as a physics PhD graduate student. But not only that, it's just a place for me to talk about my interests. And I think what I'd like to do is get guests on this podcast who share those interests of mine, and we talk about it, and we just have a conversation about that, maybe just a conversation about ourselves, what have you. It's pretty random. It's highly variable, right? That's the selling point of this podcast. I think that's the point of the podcast title, to save your what's the word? Save your faux pas, right? And just mask it as the point of the podcast, right? Highly, changing subjects, highly variable, right? Calculus. No, maybe we shouldn't talk about calculus. Maybe that will just scare people. But how could we not talk about calculus? Because physics is just pretty much all calculus now, right? That's fundamentally, really, a lot of the physics is based on calculus. So we kind of have to talk about it if we talk about physics. And yeah, that's the intro I wanted to say. I didn't really plan anything after that, so I guess this is where the highly variableness of this podcast kicks in. So let's just talk about the 4th of July. How is your 4th of July going? My 4th of July is pretty good. I mean, I'm not at work right now. I'm not required to be at work right now because it's a holiday. I'm technically not supposed to work. But I started yesterday, for my research, I started a model optimization. Essentially, when you want to find the mass of a supermassive black hole, you essentially create a model that will model this data set, which is the carbon monoxide emission line. So we are looking at a galaxy about 15 to 20 megaparsecs away, and we are looking at the emission line of the carbon monoxide molecule. And that molecule emits at a specific wavelength or radio frequency. And that can be recorded by the telescopes down in Chile at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, also known as ALMA. So my research is ALMA based. Essentially, I use their data, and well, not their data, it's our data, because our group requested that data. So yeah, it's our data. And you have to model the emission of this gas from the galaxy, and you sort of model it with a thin disk. Essentially, you have this, if you're on YouTube, yeah, so also, if you don't know, if you're listening on like Spotify or iTunes, I also have uploaded this to YouTube, so people on YouTube can actually see me, waving my hands and stuff as I explain this. But if you're just listening on Spotify or iTunes, then unfortunately you just hear my nice soothing voice. You don't see my beautiful face. I'm just kidding. That's not what I wanted to say, but you know what I'm saying? You just cannot see me. You just have to imagine me moving my hands and gesticulating here. But, if you think my face is beautiful, I appreciate it. But, you don't have to think that. I'm not forcing anyone to think what they, want to think. They should think the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, right? That's what my grandmother always told me. I'd always like when I was a little kid, I'd be like, oh, do I look good? I don't like the way I look. And my grandma's like, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Which, now that I think about it, it's maybe not the best thing to say. It's like, so you're telling me that I might not be beautiful? Okay, anyways, this was supposed to be about research, and now it became a subject on a podcast on beauty. So let's just move on. As I was saying, you model the emission line of carbon monoxide from this galaxy, and then you do what is known as a chi-squared minimization routine, which you're essentially just taking your model, right, on one side, and you're taking your data on the other side, and you find the difference, or what is known as the residual between them. And there's a little bit more to it than that, but essentially you try and minimize that difference, a chi-squared difference. That's not chi, the residual, the plane residual, but it has that quantity in there. So you try and minimize this residual between your data and your model, and you find the black hole value that satisfies that minimization. And I'm working on a galaxy that has never had a prior black hole mass measurement. So I'm the first person who can say will measure the black hole mass of this galaxy, which is a very exciting thing. I think that's one of the very appealing things about science. Is like you can say, I was the first person to do this thing, and I'm not trying to say like a brag or anything. It's more of like we can't be the first person to go to the moon anymore, right? That was Neil Armstrong. We can't be the first person to circumnavigate the globe. We can't be the first person to travel to the North or South Pole. It just isn't like that anymore. We're living in a different age where the discoveries where you're the first person to do something, at least in the scientific realm, you can do it, right? You can, especially in Astro, right? Because there's billions and trillions of galaxies out there. where, if you study, really, a random galaxy, and no one's ever done it before, then you can say, I was the first person to learn about this galaxy, and I know this galaxy's spectra, and I know, its luminosity, and all that stuff, right? That's just very appealing to some of us, and that's appealing to me, to think that I'm going to be the first person to try and measure the black hole mass of this galaxy. I'm also not going to say which galaxy it is, because I don't want to get scooped, right? I'm not stupid. Those of you who don't know, in academia, scooped means to just steal someone's idea and publish it as your own. And really, what people look for, unfortunately, is the publication date. So, right, even if you have this great idea, right, and you're the first person to really think about it, and then you tell somebody about your great idea, and then they end up publishing the first paper on it, they're going to get all the credit for it. So try and publish your work first, but make sure it's right. That's the issue. You don't want to publish it too soon, and while you're not sure, right? Of course, you don't want to publish something that's potentially wrong. So you have to have a balance between correctness and firstness, if there can be such a balance. I don't know. I don't see why there can't be. Wow. We're like 11 minutes in, and I'm just going on and on and on about random stuff. It's highly variable, right? I mean, I think I'm going to start saying that a lot, and it's going to get really annoying. It's highly variable. Anytime there's just a weird shift in the topic of the podcast, I'm just going to say, oh, because it's highly variable. It just 180s in the other direction. And I think one of the main reasons this podcast was ever conceived of in the first place was, one, because of the whole, I can't really blog and vlog effectively, just knowing myself. But also knowing myself, one thing I could do since I was young, and anyone in my family and anyone in my friends growing up can attest to this, is that I can talk. And I'm not saying I can talk good, I'm just saying I can talk. I can just talk so long on any given topic that, any given topic that I care about and have done enough research on, that it can be annoying. And I feel bad for the poor adults who had to grow up with me, like my parents or any of their friends who took the time to actually talk to me, because if you took the time to talk to me as a kid, you were just going to hear everything about that I liked. If I liked video games, if I liked Giants baseball, I was going to give you the whole history of it. And I think I've gotten a bit better with that, though I have been told I still sort of exhibit that behavior from time to time. So maybe I haven't totally changed since I was a little kid, but what am I going to do, right? That's just me. That is who I am. That's why this podcast exists. It's just for me to be me, and if you want to listen to me, then thank you, right? That if you can put up with the highly variableness of the situation, then thank you. Thank you so much. It means so much to me that you can actually put up with my talking, my frenetic talking. I feel like the thoughts coming out of my brain, right? They're just like a fluid, like flowing out from my brain out into my, like through my mouth. It's like the Navier-Stokes dynamics of my brain. I don't think anyone's ever said it before. The Navier-Stokes dynamics of my brain. What? What is that? Those of you who don't know, Navier-Stokes equations are these set of equations in fluid dynamics to understand how fluid flow works. And they are also the topic of a Millennium Prize Problem from the Clay Institute of Mathematics. Essentially, in the year 2000, the Clay Institute of Mathematics posed these 7 questions that were unsolved in mathematics. They were open questions, and they offered $1 million to anyone who could solve them. So far, out of those 7, only one has gotten solved. That was the Poincare conjecture, and that was solved by Grigori Perelman. I believe, I don't remember when, I think it was like in the early 2000s. But he actually declined the money. He did not accept the $1 million. He also was offered up a Fields Medal, which is like the Nobel Prize in mathematics, even though they only give it out once every 4 years. And he declined that too. So I don't know what that says about him, but heck, if I was him, I'd take the money and run, man. I mean, living on a graduate student stipend, $1 million wouldn't hurt at the moment, even after taxes. So yeah, I mean, that's what Navier-Stokes had to do with anything. Just sort of came to my mind. But they're fluid flow, right? So my thoughts are like fluid flowing out, just like through my mouth, into your ear. Okay, that's so weird. Okay, maybe stop. Stop it right now. Arate. All right, I'm going to arate that right now. Just highly variable switch out of that at the moment. I can do that. But yeah, that's this podcast episode is going to sound so weird. But I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you guys are enjoying it as variable as it is. But yeah, Navier-Stokes equations, man, those things are terrifying. I actually had to take a class that went to fluid dynamics a little bit, and there's this one term. Those of you who do any physics or engineering, there's this one term that just is like the horrifying term that makes those equations like a nightmare to deal with, and it's the term where you have like the vector field, the fluid vector field, dotted with the gradient vector. And I'm sorry if you're not mathematically inclined, that's not going to make any sense to you. But essentially, it's an operation that doesn't really make a lot of sense in math, and that essentially that operation is not a standalone operation. It has to act on I think the vector field again, right? So it's like u dot del, where del is the gradient operator, all of that acting on u, essentially. I think that's how it goes. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at them in a while, but that's the term that just makes everything go haywire in the Navier-Stokes equations. I don't know. There I go again, right? Just going off about random stuff that, only a few % of people would care about. But, heck, I don't care. It's my podcast, it's my show. I do what I want. It's on my mind. It comes out, as a thought, as a word, as a sentence, as a digestible set of words for your ears to munch on, to think about. I don't know why I just started getting all philosophical. That's weird. Anyways, yeah, that's that. And 4th of July means, barbecuing, right? We should get some barbecue out here. I think I might go to a barbecue later on today. I was invited to one. And I don't have any plans for dinner, and I don't feel like cooking dinner. So, yeah, 4th of July barbecue sounds great when you don't have any dinner planned or just don't have the will to cook your own dinner, especially on a holiday like this. So, that's what I'm looking forward to later on today. And I would love to make more podcast episodes in the future. Unfortunately, again, I don't think I'll be able to upload this by the end of 4th of July. So, even if 4th of July is in the title, it won't be the 4th of July, which, maybe I just won't have it in the title. Who knows? But it just seems appropriate because this is the first day that I'm filming. It happens to be America's birthday. So, yeah. Have you had enough? Are you good? Have you absorbed the punches yet? My verbal punches thrown at your eardrum? You're still standing? I mean, I could do this all day if you really wanted me to, but I won't, because you're probably off doing something actually important and actually productive, and I'm just the voice that is maybe you need to hear to keep you productive. But I think that this was a great first experience for the podcast, and I guess I will leave you guys at that. I will enjoy my 4th of July. I hope you guys enjoy your 4th of July. And I will, I don't even know how to end this, but I will talk to you guys later.